Boys, another podcast. We had a massive weekend, and
Huge, man.
we're going
Hey,
to
I
get
think
into
this is
that.
I
Yeah,
think this
bro.
is episode 20. I think this is episode
This
20.
is episode 20. Yeah,
Yeah, awesome, man.
That's awesome.
this is 20 weeks like a prep.
20 weeks, man.
I know. Can I just say, doing them in the day is so much better than doing it at 9:30 at night.
Yeah, we used to do it. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Oh
we did.
man, that was brutal. I remember there was a couple of times where I was literally speaking and then I completely lost train of thought in terms of what I was even talking about, and I just went blank. And you're like, and you bailed me out. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Anyway, it makes a difference when it's not at the end of the day and you're meant to be in better sleep.
For sure, man. For
I'm
sure.
uh, I'm missing you guys. We've obviously had a massive weekend
Yep.
all together, and I'm still in Brizzy for the next 2 weeks or week and a half. You can see that I'm in a different location if you're watching on the YouTubes.
It's a different backdrop. It's a beautiful set of curtains in the background.
There's the curtains
Another
there.
good
There's
bookshop.
some nice prints on the wall.
Yeah.
The weather is awesome here.
Yeah, bad.
Absolutely awesome. Loving it. Loving where I am in the Airbnb, all set up. It's got everything I need. It's close to the gym. It's close to the supermarket. I'm just doing my thing, working, training, prepping, and enjoying myself. So
It's such a different vibe in Brisbane, isn't it? I hate using the word "what vibe," but MG, like we were even just
Oh,
saying,
man, we said it multiple times. It was awesome.
yeah, we were fortunate. We stayed in a beautiful place as well. We're in Hamilton, which we didn't know, but apparently is very bougie in
you guys are
Brisbane.
bougie. You guys are
Hey,
bougie.
hey, Scott, did you just use vibe and bougie in the same
Oh
sentence?
no.
I know. I feel like I should kick my own ass for that. But it was just you go downstairs. Granted, I mean we wake up very early on a day to day, so being awake at 5, but going downstairs, get a coffee, shorts, and a t-shirt, and I just found that the people are just so much friendlier. People are in a better mood. We were fortunate enough to train at World Gym Stafford. Stu looked after us there, and even all the staff there were awesome. It was just like prepping in Queensland would be so much easier than Melbourne. Do you agree?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
was
too
that?
is like obviously the weather, but in Melbourne, I want to say there's more culture, so there's more things to do.
Oh,
Places
for
to
sure.
go out to eat, there's like more things to do. Whereas here it's like almost you just kind of live life in the sunshine and you can just do your thing and you can just keep to yourself. Whereas I think in Melbourne there's just so much stuff going on that and the weather's different, but prep would be hard because everyone wants to go out and do things and go for coffees and do all this kind of stuff. So I totally get it. I totally get it.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
maybe that's what we should do. Whenever we do a prep, we come to Brizzy, relocate.
yeah,
We'll all buy like an apartment together and the
well,
podcast apartment, do it on a business account, and
yeah.
prep it.
Write it off. I've always thought the Gold Coast, because when we go away on family trips with the kids, we typically go to Broadbeach, and I've loved that. But having stayed in Brisbane for the first time, I rated it. I thought it was awesome. I think there's probably a little bit more of that culture in perhaps in Broadbeach, I think. But I can also see the appeal. Brisbane's a little bit quieter, so if you wanted to kind of just float under the radar,
Mm,
yeah, it's good. But you just can't beat that weather. So good.
yeah, and yeah, we're really lucky that we had World Gym. I've got World Gym Brisbane next to me, and
Mhm.
then World Gym Stafford. We went and we trained there a couple of times, and yeah, that was absolutely awesome. And yeah, Stu from NBA, he hooked us up, and we had some really good sessions. I actually trained legs with him yesterday, which was awesome. And
Did
did
you
some,
put his through his paces? He's pretty fucking strong, man. He can lift.
yeah, he's got a hip impingement, so he was just going through the motions. Um,
Mhm.
but then they've got a posing room there, which is awesome.
As bigger than the one that we were in at Stafford?
No, that's where I went, Stafford posing room.
Oh, I thought you said at Brisbane as well. I was going to say the posing room in Stafford was grouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never been in a posing room before, and
Yeah,
you saw my
cool.
face. I was like, "Holy shit! I can see my back." There's like a mirror reflection. I was like, "What? This is fucking awesome."
Relate, man.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so we got a heap of questions. Obviously, there was questions around nationals and doing a wrap up. Then there was questions about my prep and the latest update and what's happening with me, and even some coaching questions that we'll get into. And then there was a theme around post comp reverse and binge eating, and then off season life, what to do with your goals in the off season when you do want to compete again, but you want to also concentrate on other goals in life. So
Yeah.
we're going to try to get through all that stuff because I'm sure we can go down some rabbit holes there. But I want to start off with it wasn't a question, but it was just someone put this comment in, and I just want to read it out. So there's no question. Just wanted to say I've been listening to the last 5 episodes now, and it was so refreshing to have a bodybuilding podcast that's relatable as a competitor. I saw you all together backstage, and it was very cute how all you connected and interacted with each other. I hope you guys are doing well. That's nice. Like, we ran into so many people backstage. I had someone that was from a different state, was pumping up before a division. She put the bands down. She ran up, she's like, I listened to your podcast. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. I was like, oh, that's so good. And I was like, are you going on stage now? She's like, yeah, I'm just pumping up. I was like, just go pump up. I'll talk to you later.
No, it was awesome, man. We spoke to a ton of people, and I think, even like the 3 of us backstage, we've all obviously been doing it a long time, and we know what we're doing, but we value each other's opinions, man. So multiple times at the weekend, I pulled Scott over to check some things out, and then when I was in a break, Scott was getting ready, I went over and just had a look at his boys and stuff. So we're always there to support each other. MT, when you had Shona on stage, for example, I think I was yelling the loudest in the crowd. We're pretty fortunate. I think I said to both of you, like, at one point across the weekend, it was like I took a moment. I was just sitting on the chair by myself. It was an awesome auditorium. And I was just like, I was looking around, like, one of my 2 closest mates, both close by doing their thing. I'm here. I'm supposed to be working. I was like, just felt very grateful, man. I was just so appreciative. So
did we hug then, bro? I think we hugged.
We probably hugged, man.
I think we hugged. Yeah.
we always hug, yeah. But it was just super nice, man. And obviously, like, when people come up to you don't know, and you get to meet new people that are within the industry, and people are willing to say that we're doing something that's helping. And we said from the start, we're just doing this to put good information out there and help the industry become better. So to know that that's happening is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Now, you guys stayed together, and there was a question about what was it like staying with Scott? Did you guys do mandates? And when are you on stage next, and are you pumped up from the weekend? So what was it like staying with Scott, MG?
Oh, wild, man. This man is out of control. Nothing like I expected. No, guys, honestly, everything that you think it would be like staying with Scott, that's what it is. I'm going to run down like literally how it went. This is how the mandates went. We went to 3 places, just 3 places for the whole 3 days. We went to IGA, best IGA ever. True, Scott?
Yeah, it was sick. It was right across the road. It was good.
Right across the road from our apartment. We went to IGA, we went to World Gym, and we went to the Sleeman Centre. And they are the 3 places we went to, each probably 3 to 4 times, other than our apartment. It was easy. Scott's like me. We pretty much meal prepped. We cooked. We washed our dishes. We sat on the couch. We did some work on the balcony. When we got bored of the balcony, we moved to the couch. I think the only non-work thing we did was we watched like a Shaquille O'Neal comedy for 30 minutes before we fell asleep on Saturday night. That was it.
Yeah, Hot Wings. That was elite.
And we watched Shaquille O'Neal.
We would have been like 10:30. We're almost. I think I actually did fall asleep at one point.
We both were, man. We were cooked.
Yeah, and then we're like, we need to have a shower and go to sleep. So, but nah, it was good. It was a really good weekend.
Like, we had such an awesome weekend, especially together. Doing our thing and doing what we love. It was almost like, when you have a big overseas trip or you do something and you come back home, you're like, you just miss it straight away.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. I was like, I just want this thing to last forever. So, yeah.
Well, I rang you when I got home, not that night, the next day, remember, just to see how you were feeling and stuff. And we were talking about how we feel. And I said, I got a bit of like the post-travel blues.
Yeah, definitely.
So
the next question was just, how did we all go? Like, how did all our athletes go on the weekend? And maybe so we'll go around, and maybe we'll start with you, Scotty.
Yeah, sure. So we had Wayne, who did men's physique. He was in the Open and the Oceania. Presented beautifully. They were big lineups. And he was awesome. Definitely his best look, the most conditioned he's ever been. We peaked him beautifully. His first division, he didn't pose. So the posing in Queensland is very different. So in Victoria, we have the quarter turns and there's an abs and thigh shot. And they didn't call the ab and thigh shot. And Wayne was a bit confused. He was just sort of waiting for that. And a lot of the other competitors move around a lot and they sort of hit their own variations of poses, versus in Victoria, we're a little bit more methodical in how we go about, it's quarter turn to the right, next pose, next pose, next pose. And they didn't really have that. So he was a little bit probably lost with that and not quite sure. We were all screaming in the crowd because we have some variation poses that he can hit. But he presented beautifully. It was very, very stiff. He placed second and just narrowly missed out on that pro card. But I mean, it's Wayne's first season. He came second in the overall twice at NBA and A&B to an ICN pro who was everyone would know Jake. Jake probably had his best showing that he's ever had. So it was very, he was up against some real high caliber talent. And then he won the ICN Vicks. He took an overall title and then narrowly, like we're talking, again, I'm a little bit biased. So obviously I always want my athlete to do well. It could have gone either way. The gentleman that beat him, Jacob, is from Queensland, one of B's athletes. He looked phenomenal. He was just a little bit bigger. You could probably have gone either way, but there were huge lineups. And to play second against, the best of the best in the country in your first season, he's got so much potential, man. So I'm sure the next time around, his time will come. But he was awesome. And then we had Felina, the pro show at night. Again, his best physique that he's brought. He's, as far as athletes go, he's probably on the smaller side, especially in pro fitness in terms of some of the guys that are that go into that sort of lineup now. His conditioning was awesome. He just probably didn't quite have the size. He's got some areas he needs to work on, so he placed fourth. But again, brought his best physique. And I've got so much time for Felina. He's just a true professional. The result really doesn't mean much to him. It's all about being better each time. And we've actually stepped on stage against each other before. And so to be able to prep him and work with him, he's a phenomenal athlete. And again, was presented some phenomenal conditioning. He was really elite. So he did really well. And then on the Sunday, we had Woz in men's physique. And again, Woz is 59. And so in his categories, the over 40 and the 35 plus Oceania, he placed fourth. Which is incredible. Like some of those guys that were going up on stage, they're our age. They're, 35, 36. So to be given away 25 years and some of those boys in the Oceania one, they would have been like 80, 85 kilos on stage. Was is 59 kilos. So, he was awesome, man. Just super grateful in big lineups to be on the podium. So it was an awesome weekend. And then, to be honest, even though I wasn't coaching Shona or Elise, it kind of felt like I was living vicariously through you guys because I was there and I was watching them pump up and also analysing. I was lucky enough we went over to releases the night before and have a look and, giving each other feedback. But to see those guys doing well as well, it felt like they were my athletes because obviously I was just as invested as you guys because obviously I want them to do well for themselves but also for you. So, yeah, it was just a super, super awesome weekend. Just grateful that everyone did so well.
Yeah.
TMG?
Yeah, also, just like they're all amazing athletes, but like if anyone hasn't seen Woz, man, jump on Scotty's page. Like 59 years old, man. That guy's fucking goals, man.
Crazy.
He's a weapon, man. His chest, like he's got some super, super good shots, right? Where, you stand next to him and if that was at 60, if I'm at half of that, man, I'll tell you what, he should be so proud. You guys did an amazing job together. And I know he's a top bloke as well. So
yeah, he's a good man.
But yeah, same Scott, man. It was freaking awesome. Elise did amazing. It was like the best result, we could have asked for. We went up there hoping to do well. We had the Oceania on the Saturday where we placed second out of 19 on the Saturday. And I think we were obviously, Scott spoke about the posing. I think that's what caught us out as well, where we were hitting a side pose, which our front pose in Victoria is a side pose. It's what we've always done through the Vicks. Obviously had a lot of success over the years. And, in interstate, they seem to favour a front, bit more of a power bikini stance, where I've got a photo of Elise up on my page if anyone wants to have a look at it. So we kind of regrouped on the Saturday night. And if anyone's seen my post, we kind of just pushed a little bit harder. We went a little bit harder with food. We topped up some water, and then we went a little bit harder with sodium as well. We came back the next day, tighter, fuller, but we completely adjusted that pose. We went into just that front pose, which is actually facing the judges, which is a really great shot for Elise, like really flattens her midsection out hard. And as long as she pops the glute hard enough, she looks absolutely elite. So on the Sunday, she took all three of her classes, which is bikini novice, which was 19 in that one. It was amazing. A great experience for me to see her on the top. She deserves it. Obviously, everyone knows that Elise and I, and also Charlie, her husband, are all very close. even with the kids and the family. So when you see someone who's super close to you do so well, it's far more of a special experience. So she took that out. She took Mama's out, and she took 30 plus out. So she got 3 tiaras, man. So she got banged for her buck on the Sunday. Cool. She did 3 divisions and took home 3 tiaras. So if you look online, there's a photo of Elise has got one. I've got the other one, and then her beautiful daughter Maddie's got the other one. So
that's awesome.
It was super special. But yeah, definitely her best showing. We nailed things by the Sunday. And she deserved it, man. Like, she's the hardest working athlete. She's come back from a long way at the start of this year with some injuries and stuff. But yeah, no one deserves it more. So I was just proud as punch, man. Obviously, I got emotional. You guys saw me on stage. We had that moment where we hugged. We were both a bit teary and stuff. So I just think, like, when you've come from a place of, nearly not doing the season because of injuries and stuff, and you both decide that you're just going to give it 110%, and then it all comes together and it pays off, it just makes it all that more special. So best weekend ever, man.
I think, people need to realise that there's some coaches like us that we're really invested. We really want to see our clients happy and everyone in our team happy, placing or no placing, but just really happy with their result and their look. And we're so invested. So we get excited and we get emotional too, because we want the best for them,
Yeah, and I'm already freaking emotional. You guys know me. Like, I need anything else to make me even more emotional.
I'll stop there. but
it was awesome, man. Amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I had 3 athletes. I had Shona, Amy, and Kirsty. And then Amy also did Sunday, but all 3 of them were on Saturday. Shona was the first one up. She did her fitness. Obviously, the goal was trying to get a pro card. She got a pro card in A and B a couple of weeks beforehand, and she also won the overall VIX in fitness. And we're going for that pro card. We got second in the Open against a super competitive lineup, and then I believe it was a 3rd or a 4th in the Oceania against, I don't know how many people.
Huge. It was
15 to 20 people.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was huge.
And it was stacked as well.
And absolutely amazing. Shona is only 24 years old.
Same, man.
And she was probably the best conditioned on stage. She has amazing shape and mass for her training years. She just got outsized in the end for fitness. You've got women there that all the ones that placed higher than her had at least 10 years of training on her. And so there's nothing else she could have done. She did her absolute best. She looked her absolute all-time best.
For sure. There's
just more training years on those women, and they just had more muscle mass and were just thicker, especially through that back. So easy to work on, easy to implement, and something that if she ever wanted to come back and try to hit that goal again, it's something that we can definitely get after. And then Shona was already existing sports pro, and she decided to do a pro debut that night. So never been in a pro lineup before, and she was against all existing pros. I think there was maybe one new pro, but other than that, all existing pros.
Yeah, and that was quality too, man.
That was a quality lineup,
man. Yeah, it was.
And she took that out. She won her first ever pro lineup, and she ended up being the sports pro champion. So
awesome, man. Awesome.
Hit that top spot. Again, I'm a little bit biased, but I think it was really well deserved and was pretty clear. She was absolutely amazing. We had that same problem too with the front pose. In fitness, they called that front-on-front pose, and we hadn't really practiced it. And also, they called a hands-down
back pose, yeah,
which we hadn't practiced either. So as soon as she came off stage, we practiced that after fitness, and for sports, we had it nailed. And she has a really good, let's call it a power pose, which then she used as her front pose.
The power pose is insane.
Her power pose is lights out. Like, she's got
just the
adductors and a quad flare is crazy. Her shoulder width is crazy. Small little waist. It works really, really well for her. So she absolutely nailed her stage presence and ended up getting the win. So she got her tiara too, and her sash and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, she got what we came for, which is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And Amy, she was in bikini and swimsuit, obviously coming off the back of VIX. Really good showing. I believe she was getting second,
yeah.
Yeah, in her open lineups, which is amazing. again, 15 to 20 competitors on stage in her first ever season and getting those top spots, and then coming to nationals and basically getting thirds and fifths in all her divisions. So ending up on the podium, which is absolutely amazing on a national stage. Again, it's not about the placings, it's about looking your best, and she obviously looked her best and she improved from the Vicks. And then Sunday she backed it up and got on the podium for all the divisions too, thirds and fifths. So absolutely amazing for Amy. And then also had Kirsty on the Sunday. She looked her best ever. I told her the biggest glutes on stage, and her stage presence was amazing. She looked her absolute best.
Definitely massively improved from last time, man.
Oh, she's so much improved. And that's all you could ever ask for, is someone that makes improvements, looks at their best every showing, every season, and also pulls off their stage presence, and she did that. So, she went straight into reverse diet post that point, and she's been absolutely nailing it. So I'm really proud of the team and all the girls, and ready to rock and roll for all the reverse diets that everyone's going through. There was a question about, are we all done for the season? I know I've only got one more competitor left that's doing A and B Nationals. But other than that, everyone's in a reverse diet off-season, or people are ready to wind up for season A next year. How about you guys? You got anyone remaining to compete? Yeah, Scotty?
I did, and now I don't. Put everyone. There was Amanda's obviously, unfortunately, she's had to wrap her season up because she just got so sick. And Tyler and I caught her 2 days ago, and so he's decided that he's pretty much done now too. So that's it, man. Everyone's into the pasture recovery phase, eating more food, putting on some body composition, and just getting back to sort of feeling normal again.
How about you, MG?
Yeah, no, everyone's done. I'll obviously be going up, which I'm super pumped for A and B Nationals, man, next Saturday 22nd, which is the Nationals and then the Pro Show as well, which is awesome.
Sydney, right?
Yeah, man, Sydney. So mad venue as well. Just really excited to see that, see the standard. There's obviously a handful of athletes from Team Vic who will be going up and representing, and I'm super excited to see Jimmy's girl, Rachel, make her pro debut in bikini.
Oh yeah,
which is she's got a killer physique, man. So I can't wait to see her stand on the pro stage. I think she's going to do very, very, very well. And a handful of good existing A and B pros who are also competing that I cannot wait to see.
It's awesome.
And
so
I think
Nationals, there was a couple of questions that we'll just tick off really quickly. So someone asked, how do you get your pro card at Nationals? So you've got to win your open class. Yep. And there was also an Oceania class, which is considered an open. So you've got to win that too to get your pro card. And that's pretty much how you do it there. I want to quickly cover judging, because something that we discussed in our last potty about Victorian judging, they're looking for a certain physique, going for a certain look, and then how at Nationals things are going to be a little bit different. And I think our point was proven. With we had a Victorian athlete, Lily, in bikini, didn't place well in the ICN Vic bikini division. But luckily, she soldiered on, she went to Nationals, and she got her pro card. So just goes to show there's that we were onto something last episode, and that the look that they're going for in Victoria, don't be surprised that at Nationals things may be a little bit different. So I actually went up to her later and I said, this is the reason why you should always take things on face value and have some experience and have a coach that maybe guides you, or understand that maybe judging is a little bit different. And if you want to, I want to call it, take a risk, spend the money, come up to Nationals and give it a shot, it can pay off. And it paid off for her. And I'm really, really happy that it did.
Yeah, for sure. And credit to Beck for obviously, encouraging her to go and do the show, because I spoke to Beck and Beck was like, you will be better suited for Nationals. And she absolutely was better suited for Nationals. So,
yeah, she looked great.
That pretty much wraps up Nationals. I'm excited for next year. Season B Nationals is in Victoria, Melbourne.
Melbourne Expo, or the exhibition building, I should say. There's no expo.
Yeah, and I know we've already got people lined up for it, so I'm super excited. And obviously we're excited for Scotty too. Hey, jumping up on stage, pro lineup, it's gonna be absolutely awesome. So
Yeah, we're gonna get a prep coach podcast crowd just for Scott.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's
gonna be epic, man.
All right, next topic is me. What's going on with me? What's going on with my prep? Some people asking that they've seen that Scotty's been giving me some advice on comp days, and I've been asking him to help me out a little bit. So people are asking, is Scotty my coach? And also people asking, when's my next show? I didn't do nationals, which we discussed last podcast, and am I doing A and B nationals, which is this Sunday, and Muscle Mania. So let's just address the elephant in the room, which is Scotty my coach? So basically so Scotty did help me on show days for my recent 2 shows, which was A and B and then ICN. He's obviously there. He can see me in person. I respect him. I respect his knowledge, and we work well together. So he did give me advice, and he really, really did help me out, and I appreciate everything that Scotty has done for me. And then post ICN VIX, obviously I wasn't doing nationals because from a competitive standpoint, I didn't think I was going to be competitive at the nationals. Decided to not compete and concentrate on coaching, which I'm actually glad I did, because they were full-on days. Yeah. And it would have been very, very difficult for me to do that, especially because the lineups were all mixed and the order was all mixed. So I would have been on stage in between clients. It would have been really, really difficult. So I spoke to my coach and said, basically, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing post this point. I'm more than confident to take on my prep at this point. I've obviously learned a lot from him. He got me to the conditioning that I need to, and I'm confident to take it on board and take that responsibility. So we had that discussion post ICN VIX, and then I just basically reached out to Scotty and told him how much I appreciated everything that he's done for me, and said, will you help work alongside me to guide me through my next peaks? And then after that point I want to hand the reins over to Scotty as soon as reverse is going to start, and take over my off season and go from there. So yes, Scotty will be my official coach, and he has been helping me, and it's been invaluable, and I really appreciate you, Scotty. So thank you so much. So that is the goss. Welcome. That is the elephant in the room, and Leah, let's talk about what I'm doing next. So obviously I didn't do ICN Nationals for the reasons that we just mentioned. For me, it was about, if I was going to do nationals, about being competitive and not just, having a goal of doing a nationals. And I want to look my best and be competitive. To do the Vic shows, it was about having my family and friends there, getting my best physique I've ever reached, which I did that, and having an absolutely amazing experience. So those goals were definitely ticked for me in my mind, and they don't need to be fulfilled anymore. It's coming up to do nationals was more about being competitive and improving my physique and looking better and better and better every single show. And what we found at the moment is that my body's just not recovering from the ICN VIX. My mind is so strong, but my body's just not catching up to my mind. And you boys know that my relentless resilience is there to keep pushing and doing exactly what I need to do. But the body's just at the moment saying, we're not going to do what your mind says at the moment. We're not going to. We don't want to push as hard as you want to push. So, Scotty, I want to hand it over to you, because you've obviously been helping me dissect this and try to understand why my body. It's basically a little food retention, if you want to call it that, right? And why it's just not playing nice, even though we're trying to implement a strategy that should be working, but just isn't at the moment. So maybe give a little bit of an explanation of what you're seeing, because sometimes my eyes, I'm not happy and I don't want to get on stage unless I'm better. It's not about competing, it's about improving. If I'm not going to be better than my ICN Vic showing, I have no desire to get on stage at NBA or Muscle Mania unless I'm better. And that's all that matters to me. Even if the lineups are going to be small and I could get a pro card and I could place well and blah, 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 for me, in my mind, I just won't be happy. So, Scotty, tell us what you're seeing and maybe the reasons why someone just won't respond, even though they're staying on point in their mind and wants to keep pushing.
Well, I think, even if we look at the Friday when we got there, we went into the posing room, and the first thing that MG and I probably saw, when we looked at you, and we could tell, even before we actually talk about aesthetics, firstly, anyone knows, you as a person knows how positive, you're resilient, and you've just been like almost on autopilot this whole prep. Like, I'm sweet, I'm ready. Nothing can break you. But this was probably the first weekend where I guess the abrasiveness of such a lengthy prep had started to take its toll. Even just, and again, we voiced it to you saying, and even though you're like, yeah, man, I feel good, but it was like the tone in which you speak, not it was bad, it was just, it was softened. You could just feel and see the fatigue. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago, that eventually prep gets you and it gets a hold of you. Everyone's different in terms of when that happens. And it's just the wear and tear of, I mean, how many weeks have you been dieting for now?
35, 36 weeks.
That's an enormous amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about it, that's most people, and this is why so many people break down in prep, but it just goes to show the mental fortitude that you possess to be able to, I'm all in until I'm out. And so for that, obviously, we admire you. But we did start to see that. And even, you know, the biofeedback you're giving, like, I'm hurting, like I'm so cooked. And it's also, it's the frustration that comes with, like, when we first saw you, we could see straight away, I was like, man, you're watery, you're washed out. Like, your legs are still super sharp, you're grainy, but through the midsection, you haven't just gained body composition, you haven't had an overfeed, you haven't done anything like that, but your body is just so inflamed and so beat up that your cortisol levels are through the roof. We've seen an increase in mineralocorticoids, so a water retention hormone that is secreted when you are super dieted, super flat, super fatigued. And essentially, you're asking your body to keep going, but it's resisting. And so you're seeing some of that recoil, and we see it in the physique. And so some of those diet-related perturbations, if you will, that you're encountering, they start to wear away. And so even the fact that we had the discussion and you were completely transparent, exactly what Michael's just said is exactly what he said to us. If I'm not going to be better, then there's no point doing this. And so we're on the same page. And so in terms of how does that look improve? So obviously everyone knows that you've got to get flat to get lean. And obviously you've got to be super conditioned and lean in order to be able to fill out your physique. You've been running low days for quite a while, and even probably for you pushing lower than maybe you needed to on some of those low days, would you say?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And so even that, though, for example, we spoke about that is like unheard of. So it's like that when you're getting to that sort of point, like that kind of feedback is like you just lose complete objectivity of exactly where you're at. And it's so hard when you're so lean. Even when you sent me some pics the other day and you're like, man, I'm just, you know, I still look shit or whatever. And it's like, well, you're nowhere near as watery as you were when we saw you on Friday. Granted, you know, when you're flying, less oxygen, water retention, and edema is always going to be higher. But
so my physique has improved since Friday before Nationals when we
it has
session in the gym and things like that. And even today it's improved and so on and so forth. But yeah, I did dig harder than what you told me because, as I said, my mind will go there. I'll just do whatever the fuck it takes. But,
and as we spoke about, it's not necessary because you don't need to get any leaner. And it's like, this is where, and we've had the conversation, when you're in the depths and the back end prep, sometimes you need to make a decision. Do you want to take conditioning to that next level? And sometimes, yes, you need to do that, but sometimes you also have to weigh up the recoil and what are you giving up on this side of the fence to get that. So to sacrifice that little bit more in conditioning for the risk, like let's say that, I don't know, you were 75 kilos, I just want to pull down, I need to be in that 74 range. You may be able to do that, but of that, how much of that adipose tissue is actually coming off? And then how much quality lean mass are you degrading and sacrificing to get that last little bit if it's perhaps not there? So essentially, it's you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that's where you kind of have to weigh that up. So, you know, we spoke about there's no need for you to continue. You don't need to dig that low. You don't need to be doing 16, 20,000 steps. Like, you need to give back through that system. And so we sort of spoke about, and this is, we'll be fully transparent. We spoke about this weekend, we've given ourselves until Friday, where if your body doesn't respond to the plan that we've put in place, which I still think, and again, physiologically what we're proposing should work, but the human body is not just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It doesn't work like that. So sometimes you can put a plan in place, but you've been dieting for so long that there's that survival component that your body wants to resist what you're asking it to do. It wants more energy availability. It wants you to train less. It wants you to have some more fat mass and get back to being a normal, healthy human being. So you are fighting with that, and that's part of living life in the dieting state. So we've sort of said we're going to employ a gradual linear load of carbohydrate, a little bit more food's going in today, carbohydrate, training volume's pretty much starting to come down, a little bit more goes in tomorrow, and so on, rather than an aggressive backload. And the way that, you've approached your peaks in the past, that response is probably not going to work. And that's why peaking is sometimes a moving target when you're super lean. Like what you've done 2 weeks ago may not work because you're not in that same environment anymore.
Yeah.
And so just assessing your look on a day-by-day basis, and then, hopefully with that carbohydrate going in, obviously carbohydrate, your body requires water in order to deposit and store that glycogen.
Yeah.
And so in order to do that, hopefully some of that water that your body's been holding, and we do typically see that sometimes, someone will have a refeed and it's like, wow, they'll have a drop in weight, and it can just be all that fatigue that you've been carrying. It just washes off straight away.
Yeah. Also, like some of the things that we were seeing, like to just get like really specific, is like you sent MT up to do some cardio because obviously we thought he was like a little watery, a little washed out. So just to do some time on the treadmill and then straight to the sauna, 55 degrees, and he walks out dry as anything. Like just couldn't get a response,
And so that biofeedback's like his body's just resisting again. Like it's holding on to water.
I did cardio, didn't sweat, went to the sauna, 55 degrees, didn't even sweat.
I'm like, man, he's dry. What the?
Yeah.
He's dry. And also, it was freaking hot in there as well. So it was like, we were dripping, right? We were dripping sweat. He was doing cardio. We were training. He wasn't sweaty. Then he went in the sauna, which was 55, came out dry as. I was like, the body is just...
And it's not like he's not water manipulating. The guy's drinking 5 liters of water daily, still hydrated when he goes to the bathroom. It's just that there's so much cortisol. And so in terms of why would you go and have a sauna? If someone's pulling water, if you're flying and you do have a little bit of edema from obviously less oxygen, flying at higher altitude and holding onto water, a lot of the times, or if you've got an imbalance, a lot of the times just sometimes sweating out some of that water can help you just get back to baseline. But even the fact that his body just, it was just resisting, and you're not doing anything drastic, nothing's really changed at all. It's just your body's resisting. But again, I haven't seen your photos from today, and then obviously you trained on one meal today, and then the plan is obviously you're going to have more carbohydrate between when you've trained and when your training session is going to be tomorrow night. So obviously your ability to saturate muscle glycogen, and you won't even achieve complete saturation, but there'll be more carbohydrate in circulation. In theory, obviously training, you should start to see, you push that carb in, move some of that water. And again, feedback on how your pump is. And you said today, before we jumped on this, that you're able to get a pump a bit better. Wasn't crazy, but you're like, I was still washed out through the midsection.
Yeah. Yeah, like, as I said to you boys, like, I'll just keep pushing and do what I need to do. My training intensity was good today. It's just, I was just trying as hard as I possibly could and just doing what I needed to do. So we'll just see what happens. But as you know, the biggest priority for me is to look better. And if I don't look better, I'm not attached to jumping on stage. That's the biggest goal for me. I achieved my best physique at ICN VIX in front of my family and friends, and I enjoyed myself. And that was the goal for my season and that component. If I'm going to continue to compete, I need to level up. And if I'm not leveling up, then I'm going to start off season and I'm going to start with those goals.
Yeah, exactly.
And probably seeing, the standard, I mean, we all watched the pro show on the Saturday night as well, seeing the caliber for everyone. It's like, that's when you're looking at the best of the best. And even just in the amateur show, the standard all weekend was, especially even in the guys, it was phenomenal. So, everyone, you look at that and be like, wow, that's sort of the benchmark and the standard. And I think everyone knows, but natural bodybuilding's it's in a very, very healthy place, at least in Australia at the moment. The standard's getting better every year.
Mm-hmm. So that is my prep update, guys. So we'll keep everyone posted, obviously, with what's going on with me. And yeah, if I don't get on stage and things don't work out, I'll still be here for the remainder of my full stay. But it'll just be me just doing my thing and starting a reverse. Other than that,
Getting some fat mass on him.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm in a good position. I'm in a good environment here in my Airbnb doing my thing. So I'm confident to just keep rolling with it, keep staying on point, and starting a reverse if that's what's the next for me.
Would you also say, because I feel like this is valuable for other people, perhaps who have just competed, now that you've competed and you've had some feedback and even seen, what the top tier standard is, that you now know exactly where you stand, what you need to work on, and if anything, like even, MT saying to me, and MG you were saying the same thing the other night as well. Like, I just can't wait to get into my off season and get to work because I know what I need to do, and I can't wait. I'm so pumped. That's the mindset you have to have.
I'm so motivated. Like, I'm dieted down, I'm depleted, blah, blah, blah. And I'll keep pushing, but I'm so motivated for what's next. I'm so motivated. Like, I just cannot wait to get to work once this is done.
Yeah, sink your teeth.
And I'm not even, like, some people are like, oh, what are you going to eat? What are you going to do? I'm not bothered. Like, I've got a goal and I know what I want to do, and I'm motivated by that, not motivated by going out for dinner with someone.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me. Everyone's different, though.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. No.
Yeah, man. Like, even for me, for motivation, Nationals actually motivated the shit out of me because seeing what was doing well kind of resonated a little more with what I think I present in terms of, like, it wasn't a very small, sort of aesthetically pleasing physique that was reasonably well conditioned. The guys are doing well in, like, fitness, for example, like big, tall dudes my size, who were peeled as fuck. And I'm like, cool, that's what I can bring and present. So, man, I actually left Nationals more motivated than before because I'm like, oh, that's definitely the quality that I want to bring back. And I feel like that's where I'm going to stack up a little bit better. So, motivation's sky high. Scott reads my check-ins. The last 4 or 5 have just been like, look, just swearing. Let's fucking go, man.
Yeah.
Session performance 10. Session performance 10. Session performance 10.
And that's how it should be in the improvement phase. It's good.
Let's move on to, we got our next topic is post comp, and we've got a lot of questions or a lot of statements around about binge eating post comp. So I'll kind of read 1 or 2 of them, even though they're all in the same vein, to be honest. But advice on binge eating post comp. I binged badly every day last week, probably double my reverse diet calories. I hated myself, but literally couldn't stop. I have found my feet again this week. Thank God. And I feel better, but I feel this would be good for you guys to discuss. Another one was 10 days post-comp and struggling to get back into healthy eating habits. I feel like I need a break from counting calories and focus on intuitive eating. What are your thoughts? Another one was I've fallen into bad binge eating habits. I feel so fucked and thought that I could track yesterday, but binged again today. I'm still working with a coach, and even that hasn't deterred me. I feel like I don't have any issues training, but I can't get control around my food. So, post-comp is not easy. It's really not easy. But accepting that these things are going to happen is what you need to understand. Having a really good environment, support system, someone to be accountable to, having a coaching reverse is probably the most important thing. Having that support, having a structure, having a strategy, having a plan, having someone to be accountable to, having someone that's not going to make you feel guilty, that's going to reassure you and is going to continue to try to get the best out of you, but also having an environment of people around you, a home environment set up for success, not having things that are going to tempt you, and also communicating with people that you live with and people around you that what you're trying to focus on at the moment and what you're trying to get through, and they aren't kind of trying to sabotage that situation or put you in a situation where you'll be tempted and potentially binge eat, and allowing them to have the permission to tell you off. and to tell you that, hey, I don't think you should be doing that. I don't think you should be eating that. Or why is there biscuits in the pantry and things like that? Try to set yourself up for success. And I always tell everyone that's in reverse at the moment that I have in my team, firstly, I'm proud of all of them. They haven't been 100% on point, not all of them. Some of them have. But I'm proud of how they've tackled this. A lot of them are first-time competitors and the first time they've ever gone through this. And I'm really proud of the team at the moment and how they're going through. But they need to be open and honest with me and with their coach and have that support system around them. And I need to make sure I don't make them feel guilty. We've got to put things behind us. We've got to try to improve every single day. I've got to try to get the best out of them. And I've got to try to keep them accountable. I tell them that there's kind of two things I really concentrate with someone in a reverse or in a recovery phase is mental progression and physical progression. If we could ideally do both of them to plan, and you physically progress perfectly to plan, and you mentally progress perfectly to plan, that is amazing. That's awesome. But I always tell them that mental progression is a bigger priority than physical progression. Because physically, whatever you do, we can eventually fix, right? With after the off season, after things have settled down, we can eventually fix any damage you've done physically. But mentally, this is something that's a little bit hard to recover from. And we all us boys are about longevity of this sport, right? We want someone to come out of the comp and want to do this again, right? Mm-hmm. And have the goal of doing this again. And if we try to push them and make physical the priority and not mental, is they're going to crash and burn and never want to do this again, right? And that's harder to recover from than something that's physically hasn't gone to plan. So always think about that is I want to mentally progress over physical progression. Both of them are important. And if you could nail them both, then that's absolutely amazing. But you need a coach, you need a support system around you that's going to support you with that goal and understand that goal. Now, I get it that your mental progression may be self-inflicted because now you're really, really uncomfortable and unhappy with how you physically look, but that will just get better over time. And you've got to think that this is all about progression, and this week is going to be different to next week, which is going to be different to the week after. And the way you feel now, physically and mentally, will only improve as the weeks progress in your reverse and in your recovery. So if you think that this is going to last forever and how you're feeling is going to last forever and your binge eating is going to last forever, it won't. You'll eventually recover and find your feet and find that flexibility and find your happy place. So I'm all about, and you guys know, I'm all about doing what makes you happy and being positive and enjoying your life and enjoying the process and being mentally healthy and happy, and obviously also being physically healthy and happy. Sometimes those things run hand in hand, sometimes they don't, but I'll tell you now, everything will eventually recover. And especially if you have a plan in place and a coach and a strategy and you have good people around you, it's all going to work out in the end. Mm-hmm. I know you're probably worrying and stressing right now, but it's all going to work out in the end. You're not going to be binging forever. You're not going to be uncomfortable forever. It'll eventually all subside, and you'll have a successful off season, live a healthy and fit life. And it's just about getting through this tough time and putting yourself in a situation to be successful and having people around you that are going to facilitate that success too. How are you guys feeling about that? What are your client journeys at the moment? What do you feel about physical and mental progression in reverse? And if people are binge eating, do you want to start this, MG? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I just want to say that, like, no matter. Hang on 1 second, man. Sorry about that. Something's wrong with my speaker. Yeah. Just to think that you've been dieting for, say, somewhere between 20 and 30 weeks, all right? And you might be really, really deep in the hole. You've been dieting on what is relevant low food for you. To think that you potentially couldn't go another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks with food that's increasing, I promise you you can. Typically in that phase, your volume of work is going to be reduced. Things like cardio and steps get reduced. So your overall expenditure is also going to be lower, and typically your food's getting a little bit higher. So just remember this. You've been in a worse place than this and you got through it. The only difference now is you don't have that big end goal or that big end date to strive for. but you have pushed harder and you can absolutely get through it. The most important thing that I remind everyone is if you do this correctly, if you respect the reverse diet, the recovery diet, you do it correctly, you're patient, you take your time, the thing that lies at the end of that rainbow is amazing, right? It's a recovered metabolism, eating, probably a substantial amount of food that when you get to that point, the last thing you're going to want to do is eat anything, high calorie or shit, because it's a struggle getting it all down. And that's the potential that you can get to. The thing you get along the way of that is amazing training performance, great gains, better recovery, like all these things play a part. So, the psychology as to why the binge eating is happening is probably not something that, I can comment on, but I just want everyone to remember how important that process is. Trust and respect it. Try and give it your absolute best effort, because the end result is so, so worth it. And you can get to a position where you're 12, 16, 20 weeks post-show eating, more food than you've eaten before in a much better composition that you've ever had at that point, and your weight is just staying the same. And you're sitting there going, fuck, I can't get this food down, but my fucking weight won't go up. Like, that's a potential and that's a possibility if this thing is done correctly. So I just want to say, think about it, respect it, give it every chance to succeed, and just know that all those foods that your mind is telling you that you want to eat or you want to indulge in now are going to be there for the next 100 years. And it's like, if I use myself as an example, I'm at a point now where the last thing that I want to put down is a pizza or chocolate or something, because I just know that that's going to make me feel full or feel shit. And I've got so much food to put down. It's just, there's no part for it in my plan. So that wasn't my mindset straight after comp. I promise. It's not me saying I'm just really, I'm really strong-minded. I did want to eat that shit post-show. I did. My mind was telling me I deserve it. But I persevered a little bit, and now it's the last thing I want. So just have patience and just back yourself. Be honest with your coach. Be open with your coach. And I promise at the end, the road is worth it.
Thanks, MG. What about you, Scotty?
Yeah, for sure. I think, firstly, you're not weak or shit or anything like that. There's such a tendency to just hate yourself. Even I think some of the questions before we came on, you were saying people mentioned I hate myself for it. Yeah. I'm a big advocate of even though competing plays a toll on your physical system and your physical being, it also wears away you mentally as well. And so your mental health is just as important as your physical. So, saying that you hate yourself and you're this and you're that, firstly, that doesn't do you any good. And I think MT is one of the most positive. Actually, both you boys are extremely positive. I like to think that I'm the same. You need to look at it from, I guess, a wider scope. So why am I so obsessed with food? Because you've been in a prolonged period of energy deprivation. The one thing that you've wanted to have, you haven't been able to have it. So that, for starters, makes complete sense. Of course, I want to go and eat an ice cream or have pizza. But secondly, physiologically, especially if you're super, super lean, then it makes sense as to why that is. So the less fat mass that you have on you, the less leptin, which is a hormone that is secreted through your fat cells, is secreted within circulation. So leptin basically, like in the off season now, if you're someone like, MG who's, almost, not, I wouldn't say deep in your off season, but he's in a stage where he's got enough fat mass, he's well fed, food's super high. He eats his meal. He's not like, fuck, I can't wait to eat again. He's probably like, oh man, Jesus, I'm full. And that's how most people feel. Whereas when you're in prep, you can eat a huge meal and then be like, I've got 3 hours till I get to eat again. I'm still hungry, because your hunger signaling is completely in the toilet. And it's in the toilet because you don't have enough fat mass on you to secrete enough leptin for you to feel that you are satiated. That, ghrelin levels are elevated, which is our hunger hormone, and then leptin is completely downregulated. So physiologically, it makes complete sense. The only way to attenuate that is A, you need fat mass on you, and B, you need time. So you can't just come out of prep, and I give this example to people all the time from my last 2020 prep. When I came out of prep, I had to take my food. Within the first few weeks, I wasn't gaining enough fat mass. So I was at like 3,600 at the back end on a day-to-day basis. I think I had to bring my food up to like mid 5,000s, which sounds, oh my God, it's amazing, but not when you're eating specific foods. It's really not. And I can tell you in the off season, it's even worse. But I had to do that for a certain amount of time to be able to get, I think I was only like 3 kilos up in the first 3.5, not even 4 weeks. And I was way too shredded. So I was having to push in foods that I don't even typically want to eat to get that fat mass back, because none of the hunger signaling and the food focus was going to dissipate until that acute fat mass was there. And then from there, you can start to slow things down. So in some ways, if you have a binge, it's just your body's way of, I guess, forcing your hand. And yeah, there's an element of willpower, but it's trying to get some fat mass on you so that it can feel safe again, because you've restricted from it for so long. So that's why when someone's lean, we'll employ, like all of my athletes will have a specific range in the first 10 to 14 days of fat mass they need to gain. And in the most part, for guys, it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 kilos. For girls, it could be 2 to 4 kilos. And then from there, our rate of loss will slow down. But what that fat mass does is, firstly, it allows you to enjoy some food. And I think you need to be careful with eating highly palatable foods. Like if you haven't eaten donuts and burgers, now's not the time to go and eat those foods. Wait until you're in your off season, or if you want to have a pizza, make a homemade pizza. But you need to still be mindful of your fiber, because that's another thing. We typically, athletes will throw out their normal everyday foods and go and just eat what they can, because there's no more end destination of competing. But if anything, there's more of an emphasis on getting sufficient fiber into you. I actually make all of my clients and my athletes that competed on the weekend, before they went out and ate, they had a specific post-show meal they had to eat. And for the most part, it had anywhere from 15 to 20 grams of fiber via vegetable and fruit in it. And what that does is it gets them out of their own way from, by the time that starts to metabolize, an hour and a half, 2 hours, they got their tan off, they're going to eat. Fucking hell, I'm so full. So it kind of buys that window. And then before you wake up the next morning, go to breakfast, have that. And then meal 2, I want you to eat something within this range, because you can't just go from being completely narrow-minded and following, specific macros, specific foods, to just eating like an arsehole and think there's not going to be some recoil. Whereas if you can just, as MG said, just give yourself, even as a coach, I'm like, give me 2 to 4 weeks. Let me get some fat mass on you. Trust me on this process. I guarantee you, on the other side of that, you're not going to want to go and do all those things, because we'll have attenuated a lot of that. We'll give you more food. You're going to have typically 50 to 75% more food in that first initial focus. We're going to add in more fiber, stick to foods that gain some immediate fat mass, trust the process. Absolutely go out for a meal, but I'll be like, in the first week, try and just give yourself 2 meals out. And for those meals, maybe pre-plan what you want to have. If you want to go for a pizza, I'm telling you in advance that the chance of that turning into a binge is going to be high, versus go and have a steak, maybe get some French fries with your steak or something like that. And then instead of going out for dessert afterwards, maybe go home and have jelly light and maybe have some ice cream or something like that. So at least that way you can control a little bit. And I guarantee you, as time goes on and that surplus that we put you in initially starts to take its toll, all of that food focus and hunger will start to come down and you'll start to feel better. And within that space, if you want to go for a burger in 3 or 4 weeks, absolutely go for it. But I guarantee you, the desire for you to eat like an arsehole won't be there.
It just dissipates. It does.
It goes. And I can tell you, and this is living from personal experience, from working with hundreds of athletes and seeing it. We've all told you firsthand, when MT finishes, it'll be no different. His food will come way up. He'll eat the same foods, but more of them. If he goes out for dinner, don't even have to tell him, man, maybe just have a steak and order some French fries, whatever, because he knows that's what you need to do. So you just, as you said, MG, when you've come this far, just give yourself another 4 weeks. Not saying that you can't go out and enjoy yourself. You're going to be eating more food. But if you go out and have a donut and a milkshake, I can guarantee you that you're going to feel like shit. I can also guarantee that the risk of you binging is going to 5 or 6x on what you would be going through if you just ate more of the foods that you've been eating. You want to have pizzas? Make homemade pizzas. Get some pita wraps, have 5 or 6, load up on protein, go for it, versus going out and getting a greasy pizza and then having a milkshake with the donut in it and then going and getting ice cream afterwards, because this is how it starts. So be selective in what you're doing. You've gone through this first initial phase of prep, the recovery phase is even more important. So that prep isn't, the way I view it, prep isn't really over, because until you've ticked off that checkpoint, that 4-week checkpoint post-comp, where fat mass is high and we've got like at least 7 to potentially even 10% of body weight back on you, then from there, you know, I'm always like, I feel a lot more at ease knowing that you're going to be okay, because a lot of the nitty-gritty work and the messy and the choppy seas are behind you.
Yeah. Hey, and do you remember we were talking about that post-show meal, right? Scott, remember the conversation? You were there when we were talking to Elise, and we were backstage, and she said, yeah, you remember how you allowed me to go out and have a burger? She's like, I barely wanted it because you made me eat that meal, remember? After the show. She was like,
Yep,
I couldn't eat it. I couldn't eat anything because I was already so full. So, like, anyone that is, like, competing that isn't coached by us, think about that in your plan. It's like, after stage, employ something where you have a high-fiber, high-volume meal, because that alone will play a big part in stopping you from going off the rails that night.
Yeah, definitely. Like, well said, boys. Like, that's amazing advice. I think, you know, setting your environment up at home for success is really important too. Like, I know for myself is when I get home and I top up my food and I go to a grocery shop, there's things I won't buy. I know, even though potentially I could have and I got the calories and macros to do it, I know there's things I won't buy. I know I'm strong-minded and strong-willed, but I still want to set myself up for success. There's things that I just won't want to put in my pantry just yet.
100%.
So make sure you do that. You set your home environment up right. People around you, especially, you got to think fit and healthy people we're a minority, right? So people around you are going to be like, oh, you can eat normal again. Yeah, you know, here's a box of donuts. I had a client that got cookies delivered to her house. I was like, give them away and make a public service announcement that you do not want those things at your house, right? If they want to have them with you, go out and have them somewhere, because it requires a lot of energy and planning for you to go out and have a cookie with someone or a dessert with someone that maybe eventually you probably don't even want to do it. And if you had it at home, they're just lingering and they're waiting and they're staring at you, and you're more likely to binge. So set yourself up for success at home. Set yourself up for success by communicating with everyone around you so that they don't tempt you and sabotage your situation and try to make them like them, mediocre, normal, not fit and healthy, if you want to call it that, right? Because that's the majority of people that are going to be around you unless you live with another bodybuilder or something like that. And try to maintain all those habits that you've done so well at in prep. Planning, preparing your food, sticking to the same foods that you've majority had the whole time, making sure you're scheduling things, making sure you know when you're training, when you're eating, what you're doing, especially if you're going back to normal life, which is a 9-to-5 job where your schedule is normal and you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and your breakfast is at home, your dinner's at home, and your lunch is at work. Just go back to your normal routine. Go back to a routine that you always had throughout prep, except you just want a little bit more food and you'll be able to execute. And then I tell people too, you have 2 untracked flexible meals out. Go out and enjoy your social time with people, because that's what you've really missed out on. Yeah, you've missed out on some foods, but you've really missed out with social time and not having to worry about what's on your plate and tracking what's on your plate. And go and enjoy that time with people, not sitting at home eating ice cream because you haven't been able to eat ice cream and you're going to go and sit on the couch by yourself eating ice cream. That's not a good position to put yourself in, and it's going to be a detriment to you, and you're putting yourself in a position to binge. So I think there's a lot of good advice there. There's reasons why we're food focused, why we need to stay on track from a body composition standpoint. Things will get better. Setting yourself up for success. It's okay if you do go off track. Have someone to be accountable to. Make sure you have a coach with a plan that you can communicate with.
Set limits.
Set limits. They're not going to make sure they are someone that you feel comfortable chatting to. They're not going to make you feel guilty. They're going to reassure you of the process. And
just remember, MT, you said a good point, right? Most of it's around the social aspect. That's what you've missed. You would never go to a restaurant with friends pre-prep and eat till you're sick. You would never do it. People say, hey, you get to eat normal now. So you get a box of donuts and eat a whole box of donuts. You never ate a whole box of donuts. That's actually it's not normal. Your mind's saying that now it's normal. So find something social, go out, make the effort, and just eat normally. It can be managed so fine. Like, you can still have a successful off season and a successful reverse and have a social life.
Eat your fit and healthy normal, not a normal person's normal. And I said it to a lot of my clients too. I was like, when you go out, eat like a non-starving, fit and healthy adult.
That's it.
Right? Not like a normal, let's call them a normal person, because a normal person will probably load up their plate and have a milkshake and have a dessert and have an entree and get garlic bread and all the other stuff too. That shouldn't be our normal if you want to be fit and healthy and you want to sustain a healthy physique.
A little, just before we wrap that up, a tip and perhaps recommendation I can give, and this is something that I personally do when I'm coming out of it, is because I know eating out doesn't, it's just, on whatever it is after that long, it's not going to agree with me. We actually, people that I haven't caught up with, I invite them over. They come to our house for dinner. Come and eat. And that way, in some ways, you can put on a massive barbecue, or you can cook, you can do homemade pizzas, whatever. You can control the narrative, but at least that way, it's an environment. Don't track, eat it. You might make homemade pizzas, put heaps of them on, or it's a barbecue. It's still a social, event, which is something, as we said, that you've missed. But at least this way, it's not someone being, like you said, they're eating Parmesan chips and they're like, oh, come on, you've been dieting, get a sundae with me. Like, you can eat in your environment and you can enjoy that. Again, I'm not saying long term, but in that initial phase, if people want to go out and do that, you can make a suggestion. Just come to mine. We'll do a massive barbecue, or, we'll do an Italian night, whatever it is. But at least that way.
Mr. Italian.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, was that
maybe go and see Alcione.
Did you just invite me and MT over for dinner? Is that what I heard there?
Man, absolutely. That's what this legit. That's one of the best to do, because at least that way there's no cap on having to get out there. You can put on heaps of food. You can relax. You can socialize. Maybe it's just me. I personally find that better, just going out.
As soon as you're back from Bali, it's locked in.
Yeah, bro.
I love it. That's great.
As soon as MT finishes, I want to do a hectic, all in, just a homemade Italian spread.
Yes.
Yeah,
man.
I'm in.
Yeah, that's funny. That's gold.
For sure. That's what I've missed with you guys. I don't care about the food. I just want to hang out with you guys and just eat and just not worry about counting calories and macros and just sit with you guys and just eat.
Yeah, just like go and get a bowl of pasta and then whatever it is, it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, let's move into the next topic, which is off-season life. I'm calling it off-season life.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mention about intuitive eating, and then also someone talked about off-season and intuitive eating. So let's go to that one first, and then we'll go from there. So someone said intuitive eating, time off tracking in the off-season for a seasoned competitor. Can it be done to achieve life balance but still make progress from a muscle growth perspective? So I know someone mentioned about intuitive eating post-comp during your reverse phase, which would probably be the worst idea ever, because if you try to eat intuitively, you're going to do what those other people are complaining about, which is binge eating. So I think intuitive eating in reverse is the worst idea ever. Intuitive eating in the off-season is something that can definitely be done and achieved. It really just depends on what your goals are. So for me and for us boys, this is our life. We love being competitors as a component of our life, and we want to get the most out of everything we do to be our absolute best next time we go on stage, and we don't want to leave any stone unturned. So we're probably not going to intuitively eat. Yeah, we're going to have untracked meals, but majority of our food is going to be structured, planned, tracked, prepared, and things like that, because that's our goal. That's what we want to do. That's actually positive for us, and that makes us happy. But if you've got a longer off season, other things in life, and you've got to decide what's mentally better for you and is going to make you happy and going to be more of a positive experience so that you can stay within this sport for the longevity of it, maybe intuitive eating is what you need to do to mentally have a break, so that when you do have to have a more structured off-season growth phase, comp prep, you're mentally ready for that and you've had a break from those kind of things. So I think it depends. It's very individual dependent. I think you need to be educated in food and know how to track and have tracked in the past and know what's in your food and know really, really good of how to eyeball meals and know what's there. You've got to also be tracking other metrics, obviously body weight, performance, physically looking at yourself and looking at your body composition to know whether you're falling too far in one direction or the other. And it also depends on, how immediate is your next comp and your goals. If you're doing season B next year, and it's 1 full year away. You've come out of reverse, which has taken you 4 to 6 or more weeks. Then you've found your feet. You could potentially intuitive eat for a little bit of time, and then you would want to start progressing in an off season if you need to make considerable progress to look better and to make a way better package next time around. If you're a top level pro and there's not much you really need to work on, and it's probably more of a conditioning thing in prep, or maybe there's a little bit of additional muscle you need to put on, then potentially intuitive eating, making sure the performance is good and making sure you're not losing a hell of a lot of weight and not putting on a hell of a lot of weight, you can probably get it done. But if you're someone that needs to make considerable progress and to flip it around within 1 year, intuitive eating for a long period of time is probably not going to put you in the best position to achieve that goal. So it's goal dependent, it's individual dependent, it's about what lifestyle you want to live, it's about your mental capacity and what makes you happy, what's going to be a positive experience for you, what's going to ensure that you have longevity in this sport. It also depends on goals. So if you want to, because one of the questions is about, I want to travel, I want to live life, I've got some other goals in mind, then if they're your immediate goals and they're your priority, then that's okay. Just understand that competing or being a better competitor next time around may take a little bit longer. It means the show that you eventually need to do may need to be a little bit further down the track, because there will be a component where maybe you need to polish up maybe some of the things that physically haven't made you progress the way you should have if you want to be competitive for your next show. So one of the things was, I'm competing in 2024 season B, but they want to live a little bit of life, they want to travel, they want to do some other things in life, then I would say you can do all those things for a period of time. I'd still maintain all your healthy and fit habits. Don't sway too far from those, because you've built them, you spent time doing those things. You should try to maintain them, maintain a healthy body composition. But maybe you want to have a career goal. Maybe you have a traveling goal. Maybe you have a relationship goal. Maybe you have a goal to do with around your house, starting a business, whatever that may be. As long as you maintain a fit and healthy body in a reasonable composition, you're not trying to yo-yo diet, you're still training, you're still keeping up your training, you're still keeping up your nutrition and your healthy lifestyle. That can all be intuitive in the background as long as it's there. I would also say having a coach to be accountable to is going to be super important. That obviously aligns with your goals and can keep you on track for your eventual end goal is going to be really, really important. But maybe there's a point in time where you maintain all those habits, but the bigger priority is to travel. The bigger priority is to start a business, whatever that may be. But for that person there, for that example, that wants to compete in 2024 season B, I'd start to rein it in and start to really look seriously at it at least 12 months, 18 months out, especially if you have a lot of work to do. As I said, if you're that top level person that's a pro and doesn't have much work to do, then maybe you can rein it in before, 3 to 6 months before you're supposed to start a prep and have a nice build phase. Make sure you rinse everything off that you maybe hasn't been ideal. But this person said about doing nationals, so I'm assuming they want to go to nationals and they want to do really, really well. If they've got a lot of work to do, I'd say give yourself a good 12 to 18 months prior to that show to make sure that you put yourself in the best position to be competitive. So you've got maybe a good 6 to 12 months of living life, having other priorities, but still maintaining all those habits that you've worked really, really hard on and that body composition that you've worked really, really hard on to maintain that at a certain level before you really move towards a comp prep goal.
Yeah. And if you're like not traveling until next year, end of next year, why would you waste the time from now to then? Like, capitalize and try and build as much muscle tissue. If you're leaving in September, man, track and measure everything up until August. Train hard. Try and build as much muscle as you can. And then, talk to your coach about how can you maximize strategies to hold as much of it while you're away. Like, how much volume could I get away with 2 or 3 days per week where I just have one really massive session on those days to try and hold all that tissue I've built. But, like, there's so much potential for growth in that period that I wouldn't waste it. I'll just give you my example as to why, like, I don't like to be in that mindset of like doing things intuitively. It's like if every month is a potential for me to get a little bit better, right? And, you know, Scott, we spoke about the other day, if I'm trying to put on 2 kilos of tissue, right? 2 kilos of quality tissue, which is a lot of tissue naturally to put on. And every month I can just get a little bit of that. And for me to grow and be in a small surplus, I need to be eating 4,100 calories, right? And I think, no, I've got this under control. I'm going to intuitively eat. And, you know, I get 3,800 on Monday, 3,600 on Tuesday. I go hard Wednesday because I'm just catching up with friends and I get 4,300. Right, I'm not tracking these, but I'm missing, right? Because I'm not quite measuring. I'm doing it intuitively. I miss on Thursday. I miss on Friday by a tiny bit. I get to the end of the week and jump on the scales. I'm exactly the same, or I'm backwards. It's like there's a week missed. So sure, I felt like I had a flexibility, and you know maybe mentally it was a great week and it was a break. It's 1 week, but how long is that going to be sustainable for? If your goal is to get bigger and better, not very long. Because if you do that the second week and the third week and you chew 12 weeks down, you're now 3 months into your growth phase and you're in the exact same spot. So I just think if you're serious about becoming better as a competitor, that doing it the way that we're doing it is the most efficient way from a progress perspective. So that's just how my mindset works. MT, you said it. It's like that makes me happy. So I don't feel restricted in that environment because the reward, growth and progression, is far better to me than having all these options of choosing foods, because I can still choose those foods if I'm smart anyway. So like for me, it's just about like, what's the reward? And you know, the time is now, like we always talk about it, right?
There's no right or wrong. So that's what you want. That's what makes you happy. And you have an immediate goal. There's no right or wrong, right? So what you're doing is right for you. Some people, that's not right for them at the moment. The only thing I would say is, this person says, I want to live life. I would say, what's your context of living life? If it's living life like a normal person that we spoke about being normal, then that's a little bit different. I wouldn't be recommending that unless that's going to make you mentally better and you really, really need that. I'd say your normal life should still be being a fit and healthy individual and still looking at the long term of eventually getting on stage. It's almost like if you eventually want to save up to buy a house, but that's a 5-year goal, I'm sure that right now you're going to start saving money, right? You're going to start thinking about that long-term goal and start making sure that you're putting things in place so that can be achieved. This is the same thing, but you might have a one-year goal that's about starting a business. So it's all about when your goals are, always doing things to eventually get there and heading in that direction. It just depends on what type of person you are, when that goal is, what needs to be done to achieve that goal, and the time period that you have, what makes you happy, healthy, positive. I just wouldn't go backwards in what you've currently pushed hard to do and achieve. I just wouldn't go backwards. And always having a plan, a strategy, and someone to be accountable to is going to be super, super important so you don't go backwards. I have people that aren't competing for 2 to 3 years that I'm coaching that they just went overseas and traveled. And that's fine. I said, go and enjoy yourself. Go do what you got to do. When you come back, we'll figure it out. Wherever your body lands and ends up, we'll figure it out. We've got time. But they have me there to guide them through that and to not get lost. I have people that immediately want to start working on season B and already know what they want to achieve and already know what they want to do. And they're being on 100% on point straight in this reverse because that's their goal. I've got other people that want to start their PT business. And I've been helping them with that because that's their immediate goal next year. And the year after, they're going to compete. But they're still going to continue to maintain their certain habits because that's a goal in 2 years. So I think it's individual dependent and it's really good to have some really good guidance and advice along the way for sure. What do you think, Scotty?
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, as you said, it's individualized, but I mean, saying that I want to live a normal, like normal for me is doing what I want to do. Like, firstly, I think, why would you want to be like anyone else? You want to be who you are. So for me, if eating flexibly truly makes you happy and not having to weigh everything and do that, sweet, you do you. But then you have to be willing that you're sacrificing potential progression if you were to, say, live on the side of the fence in terms of how we like to go about it. Neither is right or wrong, but for me, what I'm doing is extremely normal and it makes me happy. And you're the same. But if that doesn't make you happy, that's okay. But again, you have to be willing. It'd be like saying, as you just said, can you still make progress that way? You can. We just got back from Brisbane. Technically, I can walk to Brisbane. I could walk there, but it will take me a little bit longer than if I'm to fly. So it's like if I want to track, measure, manipulate, overload, and track all those variables, am I going to progress a lot faster than if I just sort of don't record and I just do it intuitively? Yeah, fucking oath I'm going to. Neither is right or wrong, but it depends how you want to go about it. If you really like walking, fuck, walk, go nuts.
4 steps.
Best example ever.
Yeah, I'd rather catch a plane.
But let's talk about the intuitive eating, because I know it kind of riled you up a little bit when I spoke before we started recording it. And I told you about there's an intuitive eating question. And we kind of mentioned that, yeah, intuitive eating can be done in the off season, depending on goals, individuals, how far away you want to compete, all that kind of stuff. But I know it riled you up when I said someone asked about intuitive eating post comp. So let's have it, Scotty. Let's have it.
The reason being is, again, we've just spoken about you've come from following a specific way of life. You're measuring everything, you're weighing it, you're tracking your scale weight. We always say if you can't measure it, you can't manipulate it. So the worst possible time for you to start just living freely and eating what you want, how you want, I can guarantee you especially if you're super lean, it leads to hedonic eating. That's prevalent anyway, and for those that don't know, hedonic eating is just you're eating for gratification, for pleasure. Like, I don't need to eat this donut. I'm not hungry, but fuck, I want to eat it because I just get so much enjoyment out of eating it because you've been so restricted. If you decide to do that, this is in my opinion, it is the worst thing in the world that you can do. Any person, and it's rare, but along the way, people who have just said, nah, I'm good, I'm going to do my own thing, I don't want to track anymore, it's going to lead to a fucking disaster. That I can guarantee you, because you're in the worst possible state physically and mentally to go down that path. Can you do it in the off season? Absolutely you can, as we spoke about. But if you still want to make progression, there are still some elements. You still need to make sure that ideally you're getting a good serving of protein with every meal, and you've got to track your weight in the morning, because if you don't, how do you know, if you have no idea where your body weight is tracking, whether you're in a surplus or a deficit? You may not weigh yourself for a month and you get on the scales and you're like, fuck, I weigh 6 kilos less and I'm meant to be gaining. Or you may do the same thing post-comp and you got on the scales and you're like, within 3 weeks, I weigh 12 kilos more. And I've seen and heard that. It used to be the way that a lot of people would do that. But we know more now, and we're better equipped. We're more in tune with ways to go about it. If you really want to do that, then go nuts. But again, I would bet my house on the fact that it's going to end badly. And it's not the right time. And if your coach is embracing that, again, my response on the other side of that would be, why do you think that's a good idea? And if you're like, because it's good for their mental health because they need to have a break, okay, but you know it's not going to be good for their mental health in 8 weeks' time when they can't stop binging and they've gained more weight by 10% than they had on them when they started. That's going to be bad for their mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we spoke about getting someone out of their own way. If you want to transition to that, and I've had people say that, sure, that's definitely an option that we can do. Say that they never want to compete again. That's okay. But again, you've trusted me in this process to get you stage condition. Trust me for another 4 to 8 weeks to get you out of this condition, get you back to normal, and then you can go down that path. But just going from one to the other, they just don't go hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple of clients that are intuitively eating in the off season, and it's working really, really well for them. We just track other metrics, right? And
for sure, there you go.
And we go in and out of intuitive eating. There's sometimes where we're tracking, sometimes we're not, and it works well. And because their goal for competing is still a long time in advance, and they're working on other goals in their life, right?
Absolutely.
But they have me to guide them through that, right? And to still check in with me and be accountable to me, and to make sure that we're intuitively eating, but in an educated way. And they are educated in tracking, very, very educated, which is why it's a success for them. And they're in a body composition that's very, very healthy. And they live a general fit and healthy lifestyle, and they have amazing habits. So it works really, really well for them. And I think to do intuitive eating, you really need to have a really good foundation and base, for sure.
For sure. And that's what I mean. So that, for example, without knowing your clients, they obviously have a high nutritional literacy. So they understand, okay, I need to make sure I'm getting 4 or 5 boluses of proteins, 4 feedings of protein a day. and then I weigh myself at least once or twice a week, and then they might report that to you. And if you're like, this is 3 weeks in a row, the weight's been going down, all I want you to do is now when you eat your dinner, get an extra couple of spoonfuls or something, just eat a little bit more, or maybe have another snack. Like, there are other ways to go about achieving that, for sure. And absolutely, I think if I wasn't competing, that's how I would be. I would be like, all right, I probably wouldn't. I'm always going to track, but perhaps I'd be like, I want to have protein with every meal. And then I'll just use my scale weight, a couple of times a week as a proxy to see if I am, hovering within that range. And if I'm not, then I'll eat a bit less or I'll eat a bit more. But doing it straight after a contest prep when you're shredded, that's not the time to do that. There's a time and a place, like with everything.
Boys, I think we've definitely given some really, really good advice on this one. And hopefully everyone has enjoyed it. We got through some really, really big topics. Not a lot of topics, but really, really big ones I think are going to be super important for a lot of people. So I'm keen for everyone's feedback on this one. And I'm sure it's going to spur on a lot more questions for the next podcast, which I'm really, really looking forward to. And obviously, next podcast will be giving a little bit of prep update for me, because we'll find out how the result went with what I achieved and what my next phase is. But thanks, boys. I miss you guys. I wish you were still here.
We've been away. We
busy,
living out of each other's pockets all weekend, and now it's just back to the grind.
I know, but thank you everyone for their questions. Thank you for everyone that came up and said hello to us. We're going to miss you because there's no more comps anymore, so we're not going to see any people, but we will do a prep coach catch up. We mentioned about going to a gym or doing something and getting everyone to come down and involved if they want to. So we'll definitely look at doing that, when I'm back and we're in full swing of living life and out of prep.
Yeah, man. We'll talk.
All right, boys. You have a good day, and we'll catch up.
We'll talk during the week. See you, legends.
See you later. See you, boys. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.